Welcome to the Defense and Aerospace Report. I'm Vago Muradian here in San Diego to welcome back the USS America Amphibious Ready Group involving USS America, which is the brand new amphibious assault ship that's aviation heavy, as well as the USS San Diego, which is an LPD-17 class ship, and the USS Pearl Harbor that's back. We're honored to have with us now that somebody is on the 1MC with Captain Ruiz, who is the commanding officer of COMPHIBRON Three, Amphibious Squadron 3. Sir, welcome back.
Thank you. I appreciate it, Vago. It's great to be back. It's great to see the family and the community and see all the ships in safely, and just really proud of these sailors. And this is just a great exclamation mark on a fantastic and epic deployment.
And I have to say, it was really great seeing the emotional, you being greeted by your family at the brow. Let me ask you, and we're going to keep this as brief as we can so that you can get back to your family after not seeing them for 7 months. Part of the 4,500 who were in this ARG, who were deployed for the last 7 months through, as we heard from Colonel Clearfield, almost everywhere except Latin America and Antarctica. You guys were there. Talk to us a little bit about the distributed nature of your operation. These ships were not sailing together. They were out operating over wide areas. Talk to us, the necessity for doing that, but also the challenges of doing that.
That's a great question. One of the great things about this ARG is the ability of it to disaggregate and then come back together in mass power when it's required. And the things that we want to make sure that we're accomplished is that we're flexible and that we can respond to a crisis at any moment. And being able to be in such a wide area, whether it be in the Mediterranean or the Horn of Africa, the Arabian Gulf, and the Indo-Pacific area, what it allows us to do is have that flexibility for the combatant commanders. And with all the aviation that we have on board, this aviation-centric platform, and the communications and command and control capability that this ship has, allows us to really spread ourselves around and still be effective and decisive when we need to be. And so just couldn't be more proud of the crew, more thankful for the Navy for this capability and us and the lethality and the mobility of these platforms. But I think what we've seen throughout this deployment is that we have the ability to come together and demonstrate an enormous amount of combat potential, and we can also carry that on beyond the normal limits of any other ARG.
And how did this ship in particular, given that it is aviation support, it doesn't have a well deck, for example, but it has greater aviation support capabilities, more fuel, more spare parts. It has an intermediate maintenance facility aboard as well to support combat aircraft operations on a more sustained basis. How does that change your part of the equation? How does that change the model for you?
From the blue side, having the endurance that this ship has, it's got twice the amount of fuel that a normal LHD would have, and so that provides us the amount of endurance. It also, with the aviation centricity of this platform, allows us to go anywhere we want and be effective. The well deck, it depends on what capability you're looking for, and ships that have well decks is that's great for the capabilities that are required for that. For us, we leverage off not only just our aviation-centric capability, but we've got an enormous amount of firepower and capability from the other ships, and we leverage those well decks to provide the surface connectors that we need. So, all in all, it's a big team piece, and if each individual ship has its ability to do theater secured cooperation, but when we all come together and work ourselves together, we're really a powerful force.
How do you think, insofar as you can discuss them, the Navy is looking always at new operational concepts, new ways of combining? For example, there's a lot of talk about how to better integrate the amphibious force along with other parts of the Navy. Admiral Roden recently retired, but was talking about distributed lethality and how to knit the force together better, bringing aircraft carriers to operate more closely, for example, with your ships. Talk to us a little bit about some of the operational concepts that start to open up and are being considered, and you guys out there in the force are thinking where a lot of some of the best ideas come from.
So my background is a cruiser-destroyer background. I was a cruiser captain before here, so I very well know the carrier side of this. And one of the reasons that I'm here is to be able to start that integration for expeditionary strike forces. And what I will tell you is that the capabilities that our carrier strike groups have is a fantastic capability, but the capability of our ARG-MU teams and the amphibious task force is a different capability that for us to integrate and distribute and be able to maneuver with all these different forces is going to be a force to reckon with. And I think when we talk about distributed lethality, what you're going to see with the F-35s, with the the command and control that we are able to do, we're going to be able to be a huge piece of that strategy when we start developing those concept of operations even better. But we worked with 3 carrier strike groups on deployment and had no problems. In fact, I would argue that we made not only ourselves better but them better by being able to integrate and distribute and maneuver together.
Let me ask you about that part of the world. China is a rising power. It's mentioned both in the national security strategy but also in the national defense strategy. Their forces are building up. Russia obviously also standing up and also a Pacific power. As a standpoint of an Amphibious, as a Fibron commander, how does that play into your thinking at all? Does it sharpen the game? Do you guys recognize that the stakes are a little bit higher every time you guys are out and operating forward now?
Yeah, I think that risk is always something that we manage, and right now in the operations that we're in is we're there to engage with different countries, and to include the Chinese, to include the Russians, but our theater security cooperation focuses on being able to provide that crisis response. And so I don't think too much about those threats out there. I think they should think about us and the power that we have to be able to demonstrate. But I think that as that environment starts to change a little bit more, and our capabilities even get better and better, I think that we'll always be ahead, and we'll always be capable to do whatever mission we're assigned to do.
Let me ask you, last question. Obviously, some accidents. Tragic loss of life of 17 sailors last year, 4 incidents. That prompted 3 separate reviews that went on. Admiral Davidson, the Fleet Forces commander, did one. Gary Ruffhead, Michael Baird did another one. And then we also had Admiral Caldwell do a separate review as well of that. As the person who's the senior surface warfare commander as the commander of this ARG with 3 high-end warships on it, how have you guys been changing, or how are you changing how you train, how do you certify, how to sharpen the skill sets to ensure that sort of tragedies don't happen again? What are some of the lessons you derived as a highly experienced surface warrior?
That's a great question, Margaret. And what I will tell you is that, first of all, I have full trust and confidence in my captains, and as well as the surface community. I've seen them operate. We were out there with the McCain operating, and they were doing a fantastic job while we were out there. We don't get to pick the contingencies or the crisis that we respond to, and to be able to help our brothers and sisters on the McCain and support those efforts, that's what we're there for. As a community, I think that there's some changes that are coming as a result of those reviews, but I will tell you that I've been impressed, and I've always been impressed. I wouldn't stay and do the things that I do for as long as I've done if I didn't have a confidence that I do in our surface community, and the leadership that we have out there, whether it's the captains or our flag officers. It's exactly where it needs to be, but we can always get better, and I think that from a sustainment piece and continuing to train, that's the basis for everything we do, and the fundamentals is training, and so I look forward to as we develop that even more.
And from you mentioned maintenance. From a sustainment standpoint, any challenges? There's always talk back in Washington about problems out there in the fleet. Did you experience any, or do you rate whatever you had as being A1 and ready to go?
We went out there fully certified, ready to deploy, fully manned, trained, and equipped, and so you don't know until you get out there what you're going to need to do. And what we found is we look for opportunities to sustain ourselves. We had a great exercise, Alligator Dagger and Iron Magic, that keep us sharp. We used every opportunity. When you have jets on board and you can do air defense exercises by yourself because you have the resources, we're able to leverage all of our capability to continue to practice. And with our chances of operating with the carrier strike groups and doing pass X's and with other countries or even our own forces, keeps us sharp. And but you got to work at it. You got to work at it hard, and so you can't be sitting there. And that's not how we roll. And so we took advantage of every opportunity that we could.
And last question: lessons learned. What were the big lessons learned from this deployment, from your standpoint, especially with brand new cool ship like this?
No, I think that, you know, the lessons that we learned in our training and integrated phases to be able to come, you know, we really got to get the integration piece of it and making sure that we're continuing to develop that and continuing to get after the distribution piece so that we understand what the risks are with that and the advantages of that. And I think we're getting better and better at that. And then just being able to maneuver and making sure that the maneuvering capability of all of our forces continue to go towards our fleet design. And I think that as we learn through those and we think more as we sit here and get some rest, we'll be able to develop even more of the ideas that we experimented with while we were out at speed.
Captain, thanks so very much. Welcome home, and hope you get some well-deserved rest, sir. Thanks very much.
Thank you. Have